What does world-class real estate look like to you?
Trying to combine old-fashioned traditional estate agent values, but with all the modern tech that can help you move that forward.
Excellent communication is at the heart of what they do.
Great real estate looks like strong leadership.
Consistency.
This episode is brought to you in partnership with Iceberg Digital. Hello and welcome to another episode of the World Class Real Estate Podcast. My name is Mark Worrell and I am joined today by Mr. Iain White. How are you, mate?
I'm good, although the missus said this morning it could be time to put the heating on. What do you feel about that?
Mate, that was last week up north. Tell you. Oh, you are joking. We had a log burner installed on Friday, and that's been on all weekend. So yeah, it is winter. When I left the house at 10 to 6 this morning, I was like, "Oh, this is it. This is a struggle," and it was throwing it down all day yesterday. I'm impressed that your heating's not on. I say you've got a good team there. We actually got rid of the summer duvet last night as well. Yeah, it's pretty.
I've got one of those houses that it's colder in the house than it is outside, and then when you put the heating on, it's sweltering within an hour, and then it stays sweltering for the rest of the day. So it's quite good when you do get the heating on, but it's not easy to regulate. But there we go. So other than that, it's been good. Got a kitten in the house recently as well. So if there's scratching at the door that anyone can hear, it's because the kids have just been dropped to school and I'm on my own and the kitten's free. I can hear it outside. So if there is an intruder, that's what's going on. But I'm excited for today's guest. I've known Iain for quite a long time. We're a rare dying breed, us Ians, be it that he's got two eyes in his name and I've got one. So slightly different. But I'm excited for the guest because just wisdom beyond belief, kind of been there, done it on the hardest scale, at the competitivest scale, and seen exits, and now very much involved with the two different parts of a estate agency in my mind, which is, well, I guess three in reality, tech, recruitment, and then support an actual raw estate agency, and Ian's involved in all of that. So I think it'd be a really good guest for all the listeners. So definitely hang around for that. But how are you, Mark? The gilet is on.
Gilet, yeah. Well, that's the sign of how cold it is. This is. I've got it out yesterday for the first time, and then I just thought I'd wear it, get a bit of branding on the pod. Really, that was the main reason for it being on this morning. But business is all right. Okay, I'd like to be busier, probably. Two clients both mentioned the budget to me yesterday. I'm banning the word in the office, hoping that isn't going to affect the autumn market too much. That's my sort of probably my biggest fear at the moment in terms of the market and where it's going. We did the episode a few weeks back where we looked at the market being very similar to last year. We had this a little bit last year in terms of a bit of a slowdown. But we've had some good sales. Business is all right without being phenomenal. Is sort of my take on it. And I suppose really we shouldn't be greedy. We probably should be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, we looked at the stat show, didn't we, the other week on an episode, and we kind of saw that 3 out of 4 properties across the country are selling that are listed. So it might not be the bonkers kind of busyness that we saw before. But if you can get your sleeves rolled up, work really hard at the back end of this year, I think you'll get some really good results in context, to what we've experienced over the last 5 years. So it's all about that hard work at the moment, that graft, I think, to kind of definitely make it your market. So yeah, this week's guest is Iain White, and he is involved in all sorts of things. Like I said, at the moment, does a lot of consultancy for business owners in estate agency, was very much involved at a high level at the Romans estate agency that's now obviously Romans Leaders Group. He was there for double decades and some more. So we're going to talk about that and where he got into agency. Also very much involved from a recruitment point of view as well, kind of owns a recruitment business for a estate agency. So it's nice to get the recruiter's insight to that trend and what's going on there. And got an event coming up as well for estate agents, which we'll probably talk about at the end of the show too. So very rounded, definitely a guest that I would hang around and listen to for the next half hour, 45 minutes, 50 minutes, however long we rabbit on for. So should we get stuck in and get Iain on?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I don't know how it's taken us 300 episodes to get such a well-known name in the industry onto the pod, but I've never met him. So yeah, looking forward to this chat. Let's get him in.
So Iain White, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm very good, Ian. We've got two Ians on the show today. Yeah, very good. I've watched your most of your podcasts, I believe. So finally, great to be here and talk to you. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they do say Ians make the best estate agents, but we are a dying breed. What do you think about that, Mark?
Well, it's going to get a bit confusing for me today. I think Peter already has started, hasn't it? Right, I'm going to address full names. So, Iain White, thank you very much for joining us. I'll start as we always do. What does world-class real estate look like to you?
I think, it all comes down to the result, really. World-class estate agent to me is where the customer moves at a price and timescale that they wanted in a manner that makes them shout from the rooftops how good the agent was that worked for them. I think there are various different colours of that rainbow, but ultimately it's all about service and outcome for me.
I love that, colours of the rainbow. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But you said about time scale that suits them. How flexible do you think estate agents have to be to get those results for their clients?
I don't think it's necessarily flexible, Mark. I think it's honest. I think the barrier between meeting a time scale is, first of all, asking it. If you actually analyse a lot of estate agents' valuations, do they ever stop to ask what the real need of the client is? I think they're focusing on their need to get a signature. So I think that's barrier number one. And two, regardless of what the client's timescale is, I believe in most cases the strategy is identical, and the pricing advice is identical. I think they price to win the instruction, and I think they use a strategy that's identical across every single instruction that they ever take. And that's the opposite of world-class estate agency.
Ian, for you, you work with a lot of really good estate agents, directly in a support, consultancy sort of role. And is there a particular kind of DNA that you see along the best of the best that you have worked with in the past, you do work with now, or that you see from an outside perspective? Because the role now of not being in the agency like you were back in the Romans days, kind of from a bird's eye helicopter view, if you like, it is quite unique. But what's the sort of DNA that you see with those businesses that make them stand out from the average, if you like?
Well, I think that DNA is changing, Ian, because I think that the landscape is changing. But ultimately, there are a couple of really common threads, regardless of the model, regardless of the type of agency, whether it's traditional high street employed, whether it's the type of business that you guys run. I think the first thing I would say is that leadership is the first thing you notice that separates. If you've got good dynamic leaders that drive a business forward, build a great culture, hold people accountable to service standards, results, and whatever else needs to be done, that can be very different from one business to the next. But if the leadership is strong, solid, intelligent, quick to respond, that is a common thread, and I think will remain a common thread until the day I'm in a box. I don't think that will change. You are now seeing, though, that the second thread is to do with the tech deck, if you like, the data sets that sit behind that leadership. Those are the new weapons, if you like, of going out and sort of grabbing market share, which is understanding data in its true format, having the right AI, not the wrong AI, having the correct marketing and nurturing processes. So that's a common thread that's starting to develop. And then thirdly, if you happen to be in the recruiting side of things, you're actually employing people. Well, actually, I think it probably stands for the self-employed brokerage as well. It's not recruiting bums on seats. They absolutely recruit to the culture that they've got, to the personalities that they need, and they hire or bring people into their business that aren't just cheap, aren't just available, but they are actually going to add something and have the right mindset to fit whatever it is the business that they've got. So I think it is leadership, I think it is tech deck, and I think it's people. Those three things will be common threads that sit through the best businesses that grow market share and grow year on year.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool. Culture's been a topic that we've talked about quite a lot and feels like a little bit of a buzzword in the industry. And do you think great leaders have become more aware of the importance of culture, or do you think that's always been the case, that good businesses, not just estate agency businesses, but good businesses have got a handle on their culture, what good looks like to recruit the right people? Or do you think it's something that people are more aware of and more intentional about now?
I don't think it's necessarily more aware, Mark. What's changed and I think diluted culture. So I think like I came from a business that had a very definite culture. Ian came from a business that had a very definite culture. Whether you liked that culture or not was irrelevant. It was fixed. It was like go to church. It was like everybody had the same principle. Everybody had the same thought process. So I don't think having a good culture is new. I think many businesses have one by accident. I don't think it's necessarily defined. But I believe that culture has been, I've got to be really careful what I say here, but I think culture's been watered down by woke Britain in the fact that, it's almost like you can't have a culture because you've got to try and please everybody. Well, you can't. You need to set your agenda that represents you. You've got to do it within the realms of professionalism and legal statute. But once you've decided what business you want to be, I don't think you should be constantly changing that to fit every single type of person that might be sat in your environment. So I think this desire to please everyone or not offend anybody, let me flip that around, has massively watered, particularly in the corporate world where they've become so frightened of being sued or whatever it might be by a leader or a member of the public or whatever it is, that they just act in such a benign, vanilla way that they're grey. They don't have anything that makes them remotely interesting.
I think culture, the importance of it probably hasn't changed at the level. It's always been what it is, but the way that culture is across the business, that is where you go back to one of your initial points, Ian. Leadership, understanding it. It's not just leadership anymore. You have to have some human behavior skills to understand what the culture needs to be. I'm in a different place to where I was when me and Ian kind of were effectively competition, if you like. But what I see now with my apprentices that we've got in the marketing team, we've got 5 apprentices, 2 are now fully fledged. They've been with us for about 2 years, and that's an age bracket between 18 and 23. And that's a very different kind of cultural leadership understanding that I've got to have with that group in comparison to the prospect Romans, kind of agents that are out there in the field now self-employed agents. It's a different conversation. It happened just this week, funnily enough, because of the topic and the trend of nano banana, the Google AI imaging tool, where I was kind of sharing the benefits of it with the estate agents, and the clear innuendos were there, and we were all having a bit of banter about the name of nano banana, which I then took into the same conversation with the apprentice, and they were horrified. I was like, I've got to have 2 very different types of conversation around that, and it just shows that you have to understand that as a leader within the business. So, do you think, Ian? Obviously, you've got your head in the recruitment game as well. We've had Miles on the show actually, and he was a great guest. But there is a lot of talk that it's now hard for the new breed of estate agents to come through. And I know Ian Preston, the other Ian in estate agency, has spoke a lot about the entry level is no longer kind of sexy from a financial point of view for estate agents, where there used to be a big gap when I got into it. I was on 14 grand a year, and my mates were either at university or they were on 10.5 grand a year. So there's a bit of a gap, and that gap no longer seems to be there. From a recruiting point of view, is it tough to get good talent into agency, or do you think it's just we've got to look at things a bit differently now?
Yes, it is tough, but it's tough because agency hasn't moved with the times. I mean, it's because the salary on offer doesn't attract the best in class. So, at the end of the day, if you are at or below minimum wage, do not expect to hire too many rock stars. You might get lucky and one comes through and, very quickly is rising up through the ranks. We see it all the time. And I think today's leadership, because their strength of leadership doesn't necessarily allow them to charge appropriately, doesn't necessarily allow them to sell as much of their stock as they should do, doesn't allow them to get people to value correctly or have good structures around how they sell a high percentage of property. So the income is getting hurt. Their way of attacking that problem is not to increase fees and increase standards. It's been to pay lower wages. So in order to pay lower wages, they still expect, with poor leadership skills, the low quality person to magically be as good as the high caliber person. Well, unless they are brilliant leaders and brilliant coaches, that ain't going to happen. So, I can honestly say that I think the standard and average person in the employed estate agency sector today would not be getting a job 20 years ago doing what they do today. They just wouldn't be getting that job. So I think the estate agency in its current format is broken and is going to a low-cost self-service model if that's where it ends up. Or it's going to be a very different model where I think the agents will have some level of ownership in what it is they're doing, and therefore they will have a higher level of income. There might be fewer people powered by tech, but higher paid, higher caliber people, a little bit like you see in Australia and the States. So it's not difficult to recruit if you put the correct package and the correct culture in front. That's fine. But the problem is those are few and far between.
Yeah. I'm interested to know. Me and Mark did an episode last week where we both just so happened to have been in agency for that 23-year mark at the back end of this year, and we kind of, when we deep dived into it, we realised actually a lot's changed since we started, because there wasn't an iPhone when we started. The business that you were known for as an agent was one of the fastest growing estate agencies, across the South, and there was a defined culture. But I'm just interested, for people that don't know Iain White's background, how did it start, and how did it get to where you are today with, what you're doing from an ICG perspective and all the other bits as well. But let's just kind of talk through from Iain White's journey as an estate agent and the bits that you learned along the way in a short summary, if you don't mind.
My journey was it's a bit quick, really, a bit boring. I left school. Although bright and intelligent, I left school without the academic achievements because I didn't turn up to the exams. So I didn't really have much in the way of qualifications. I had planned a summer of complete debauchery and whatever it is, a year off, just go and absolutely have fun, which I'd done every summer. I was definitely a lad, I was a boy. I had good fun and stretched the rules, etc., etc. But I walked down the hill after leaving school, got to the bottom of the hill. There's an estate agency there called Bancroft Bros. It had estate agency wanted. I literally walked in the day I left school and said, I'm interested. And I started about 2 days later. So my summer of debauchery finished. At the age of 16, I was sat in an estate agency office. Can tell you how the times have changed. My first day, the phone was sellotaped to my ear. I don't think HR will let you do that anymore. But so I literally just started it by accident. I had no idea when I was walking down that hill, other than the fact that I was going to be down by the river. I lived by the river. I was going to be spending my summer down in Cookham, swimming in the river with my mates and girlfriends and things, and I was going to be having the most amazing fun. And going to work was about the furthest thing from my mind. But whatever, serendipity, the post was there. I really liked the guy that I met in there. I sort of wanted to aspire to be him almost immediately, and felt that he was certainly became a hero figure to me in terms of, as far as I was concerned, he was Batman in the estate agency world. After a few weeks, I'd realised he was doing well for himself. Of course, you didn't need qualifications then. There was no PR. There was no social media. There was no. It was a much less regulated barrow boy industry, and I was a barrow boy. I don't mind saying that I was a guy with craft here, but that was it. I was quick thinking, and in reality, what I learned very quickly, Ian, and the reason I stuck with it is because I just learned to exceed my boss's expectations. So my view is, if I was set a target of X, my job was to not just hit X or get close to X with an excuse. My job was to beat X. So I did whatever it took, and then very quickly, as a result, I think, of that mindset or attitude to just win every day, I was promoted very quickly. I was actually managing an office at 19, which if you think back to that, that's absolute madness, because I couldn't possibly have been able to manage properly other people, as I had absolutely no training or no experience of it. But in those days, it was the best leg became the manager. And Dale Norton happened to be working for that company. Dale's a name that most people will know. He was the sort of, in effect, the guy that conceived, set up and drove Romans as the owner. And when Bancroft Grove sold out, the company sold out, I was absolutely devastated. We sold out to what was Legal in General. I was absolutely devastated. left the next day, decided I couldn't possibly work for corporates, decided I was going to travel the world. This was in 1990. And I went to the Italia World Cup as the first part of my trip. England got beat by Germany in the semi-finals. I came home in the hump. And I can't remember if Dale called me or I called Dale, but very quickly afterwards, we got together. And the rest, as they say, is history. I spent 20 odd years, very enjoyable years, but they were fun because we were, in my opinion, we were building something special. We were building a winning. Every day it felt like we were winning every day. Getting up was a privilege, and getting in the office was exciting, and it was good fun. Unregulated fun, but it was good fun. And that's it really. And then obviously, I did my thing. No specialist skills or anything, just the attitude to keep beating the numbers. That was all.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it, Mark? We talk to so many people about how they get into agency, and it's always like you fell into it, or you stumbled into an office or whatever it may be. But the one thing that I take away from that, Mark, is when we've seen people that have climbed the ladder or have risen to the top or have been very successful in their roles of agency, there's a very similar DNA as we talk about it, which is this is where I'm expected to be, and this is where I'm trying to perform. And that seems to be the recipe for successful people in, I guess, life. But we're talking agency here, is always trying to deliver that next step above the expectation of the people around you. Seems to be the way to get that reputation as someone to climb the ladder, as you just described as well, Ian. So yeah, interesting takeaways there, Mark.
Yeah, I think as well it's probably easy to climb the ladder now, Ian, because when I observe businesses, too many people want to do just enough to be able to get past the boss. So actually, there are fewer people wanting to have that mindset. So in my opinion, the path to greatness, if you want to call it that, or to the top, is actually easier. The problem is, I think the mindset of the weak does rub off. If you're surrounded by people that just want to get through to payday, and they just want to get by, and they've got an old plethora of excuses to why they just missed target, or they didn't quite do this, or they didn't get that done on time, I think that rubs off. I think it even rubs off on the leadership. I think it even rubs off upline, becomes acceptable. So I think it's quite easy to get to the top. The issue is picking the right company to get in within the first place.
Yeah,
that's got the right environment, the right culture, the right training, the right attitude, the right bosses that'll pay you appropriately. Either in dollars, they'll pay you in dollars, or they'll pay you in knowledge and experience to get you to the dollars. I mean, either of those two things is an equitable reason to join a business. It's not just the highest salary, but you've got to earn more than the minimum wage as well. I think, we've all got to put petrol in our cars, we've all got to insure them, we've all got to eat our dinners, we've all got to pay our rent or mortgage. So I think it's a good industry now for youngsters to look at and say, well, actually, I can rise to the top because the competitiveness of it is not quite there.
Let's just talk about the mindset a little bit, because that's what I took. You very much glossed over the Romans 20 years, Ian, and you said that mindset drove it. So by the sounds of things, that's something that's just ingrained with you from your upbringing or whatever. How did you get that winning mindset running within that business to make it so successful? Was that intentional, or was that just you led by example?
Well, it was definitely intentional. There was no doubt that Romans was a great environment for people with the right mindset. It was a terrible environment for the people that weren't. So if you spoke to people that worked at Romans, they'd either say, "Oh my God, do not go there; it's horrendous," or you'd have had people say, "Well, my God, it was the best years of my life," because if you weren't the right person, that means we recruited badly. We made the wrong psychological decision. But no, we were unashamedly accountable. But not people have this vision that it was, sort of like the guys with the oars on the ship, and so we were banging these drums and whipping people if they didn't whiff us. Well, actually, our turnover of staff, particularly in the management level, was very low. I think the average manager was, at the point the business was sold, the average manager had been there for 16, 17 years. Well, that is quite some going for a business of that size. And there are still a few of the people there now. I mean, the most senior person in that business, I hired as a negotiator. the now current CEO joined as a negotiator. So we were definitely very fixed on the mindset. But I think where we had a advantage over a lot of others is most people manage by numbers. So did you get your 10 vows? Did you get your 50 grand for the sales? Did you get your 20 grand? Did you get your mortgages? Did you get this? We actually, although those numbers were there, we actually managed by behaviors. So are you doing the necessary things to get that result? And if you do that, you tend to help people grow. If you help people grow, they'll walk on broken glass for you because you are improving their mindset, their skill set. So the corporate world typically measures by numbers and doesn't have the skill set to either give the knowledge about the behaviors needed or to understand how to deal with behaviors. They just manage by the numbers. It's like a hierarchy of pressure, isn't it? The guy at the top saying, I've got to please my shareholder. I need more sales. Right. Well, where's my sales? And then it just goes all the way down the line. That's not leadership. That's bullying. So I think we understood, and Dale Norton was clearly the visionary. He somehow seemed to be able to just see the future. He just knew the future. He was not by his own admission the best estate agent. That was probably me, the actual guy that could physically go into any lounge and win the instruction at the time. If I think if you asked the senior team, they would have probably put me into bat to go and win that absolute crucial instruction. Dale was a great visionary. Peter Coles was, ruthlessly on point with making sure that we all followed and drove down the needs and wants of the business from a behavioural / cultural perspective. The numbers were a byproduct of the behaviours being right, doing the right things at the right time with the right skill set. If you keep doing those, the numbers come out the other end. And that's not changed. That will never change in the estate agency.
We spoke a lot about that A and B at the top, kind of having those two different skill sets that you speak about there with Dale and Peter, having the importance of the yin and yang at the top, to complement each other really does make a big difference to the business. We spoke about that a lot on the podcast. And even from, the branch manager and the assistant manager of a corporate office or a traditional office, having that A and B, that yin and yang really does make a big difference. I want to kind of just navigate slightly over to, you mentioned tech, obviously being one of the three elements that impact the DNA of a really successful business. You're very involved with the group ICG. I think estate agents have a bit of a love-hate relationship with prop tech. There's a bit of magpie syndrome. Everyone wants everything, but they can't afford it. And then everyone gets frustrated when it doesn't do what they expect it to do the next day. But talk to me about kind of what you're seeing in the tech space, for the future of agent. You mentioned AI, some of it's great, some of it's not. I think, again, the magpie syndrome is there. Everyone wants everything. But obviously being involved in ICG, how you are, you're getting to look at both perspectives, which is quite unique for our industry. So I'd just love to hear your kind of thoughts on how you see that unfolding over the next kind of, 6-12 months.
Well, look, I think the pace of which technology is learning, and particularly in the space of AI, it's learning from itself, is at a faster rate than any of us have ever seen in our lifetime. It's that, it really is. Also, the ability to create your own tech is now very much in vision now, whereas before, typical estate agent wanting to create a bit of tech to do this, it's just not going to happen. It would take 2 years. You've got to get 25 coders on it. You're going to spend £150 million doing it, and it ain't going to happen. So I think with tech, I still very much come at it from the estate agent's perspective, which is it's really simple for me. If I'm sat with an MD of a business who, at the moment, quite a lot of my work is, Iain, I want to digitalize or I want to reimagine my business into this new space, but I don't know how to implement or where to start. So my guidance on it is, look, it's pretty straightforward. First and foremost, what are you trying to solve in your business? What is the actual problem? Start with the end in mind. What is it you're trying to fix? Let's say it's I can't deal with the volume of inquiries that come in when I put a property up for let. Quite a common one. You put a property up for let, the phone lights up, the email thing is lit up, and you can't reply to all of those people. There are a number of different technologies now, depending on who your CRM is and what's connected and what isn't connected, that you can have fixed in there that basically filters leads out and kills them and deals with them in a professional and polite manner with the client, right the way through to it'll book the viewing, follow the viewing up. The only thing it can't do is physically attend the viewing if it requires somebody with a key to turn up. So that on a very entry level is, what's your problem that you're trying to fix? The second thing I would then say is ask yourself 3 questions. Does it make my customer's life better? Am I improving my service or not? If the answer is no, remove it from your thinking. There's no point in doing it. Does it improve my environment for my team, my people? Does it make their life, does it enable them to do other more important things, or does it make their life more enjoyable or less unenjoyable so I can attract and retain better people? If the answer is no, put a line through it and move it off into the, maybe next year or not at all pile. And the third thing is it providing financial efficiencies within my business? If the answer is no, scrap it. So you have to go through those 4 processes. What's my problem? Am I helping my customer? Am I helping my team? And am I in effect for the crass word, am I going to make more money? Mm-hmm. And I don't think it should be from, will I do more business? I think it should be from the point of view, am I going to do better business? Because better business will mean more business. Then you've got to have a clear path and says, okay, what does that mean to my head count? Which people are now vulnerable because I can replace with technology? Do I want to retrain them? Do I want to return them to the community? And you've got to have a little bit of a plan. And I think the other thing is, don't eat the elephant, guys. You just have to take one of these little things off the shelf, get yourself comfortable with it, implement it, see the effects, measure the return on investment, understand how it's affected your culture, move on to the next piece. But so many people are stood at the bus stop and they keep not getting on the bus. And they are getting left behind, particularly in the nurturing stroke big data space. They are so far behind the curve, some people. I mean, I am aware of businesses. Yours would be one of them, and I'm not fully understanding of your tech deck, but I can see your market share growing by either, obviously you're bringing more people in, but I can see the people that you've got that are established are growing market share. That won't just be because they're good players. They will have some form of marketing or digital stuff that's going on. So I think as long as the agent has a clear path, and I genuinely, and it's not an advert, I think they should seek advice on it, because it's such a big decision. And it also has to, will it affect my culture? Do I need to rewrite my culture document? Do I need to rethink my culture? Do I need to change the description of people's jobs as I hire moving forward? Because, I think, for example, this podcast, would we have done a podcast 30 years ago? No, we wouldn't. So do you need people that are confident in front of a camera? I would say yes. Do you need people that are going to be okay with social media? I would say yes. If they're not going to embrace social media and put themselves out there and be a TV star for the local community, it's like, well, how that's the world we're in now. It doesn't matter if you don't like it. Okay, fine, but let's find you a different career. So I think it's I think that's how I'd handle tech. And I always come at it from the estate agent's point of view. My question to the tech guys, as you know, Ian, we've had discussions and we're about to launch something exciting in the end of October, is they need to put something back into the estate agency community. They need to share the wealth they're creating with the estate agents that give them that wealth, but by sharing some of the upside. These prop techs are selling for 25, 30 times EBITDA. The average agent is sweating for maybe 4 times EBITDA or 2 times their lettings turnover. It's just time that we now group up as estate agents and say, right, we don't want to screw the suppliers. We want good products, but we want something in the end game. And we're working now with that sort of collaborative model between suppliers, ICG members, and estate agents to ensure that when the big exit comes or the big dividends are awarded, some of that is filtering back into the estate agency space because other revenues have been lost. And we have to replace those revenues or keep paying people less and less and less. And that's just a fall into, I don't know, self-serve, give us £1,000 and you'll have to do your own viewings type of service. And that doesn't float my boat. I don't know about any of you guys, but
no.
So it's an interesting space, but get on the bus, guys, get on the bus, make the odd mistake. If you make a mistake, learn from it, move on.
I think the idea of getting advice on it, if you're running an independent branch and it's your name above the door, your head is in valuing property, listing them, selling them, to then step out of that and to, particularly if you're not really into the tech and into the AI and all of that stuff, it is quite daunting. And I think that will just lead to people being overwhelmed and not doing anything about it. I'm assuming that when people do eventually come to you, you've seen that they've probably been talking about it for a few years before actually making that jump. And actually, that then leaves them a little bit behind with more work to do, more work to catch up on.
Yeah, I mean, we see three types of people. The people that really haven't got a clue and just need to understand what they should be doing. We've got the people that know what to do, but either don't have the time or the inclination or the guts to implement. They always find a reason not to do it.
Yeah.
And then you've got the people that have done it badly. They've got in a mess and need unpicking. A lot of people I would meet is the P&L is now stressed because they've done the magpie syndrome. They bought everything. They think it's going to mean, that sales line. Well, all you got to do is sell one more house. Well, okay, I've bought 50 products. I've got to sell 50 more houses now. I've seen a lot of people that have just literally bought everything. And it's right, but where's my extra 50 valuations? If you provide lots of leads to idiots, you won't convert them. And if you provide, if you buy the wrong kit and it doesn't give you leads, it doesn't work. So you've got to marry the lead volume to the quality of the person converting it. There's no point in getting more leads if your conversion goes down. That's just an expensive sausage machine that it's leaking. The sausage is squirting out the end, and other agents pick up the fruit of your labour. So you've got to have a tight mechanism that, values enough to make your business support, converts enough, charges enough, sells enough, completes enough, gets enough positive reviews. And if you can get the sausage machine working efficiently, then you can start to think about a bigger sausage machine by expanding it and putting more in. So it's a process. It's not a switch. It's an evolution, I think. But ultimately, I genuinely believe, particularly in data, AI, the handling of automated tasks, those agents that don't get on the bus are not going to be able to afford to pay their people enough because there's going to be too many people. And I think they're slowly but surely either going to get consolidated and purchased, go bankrupt, or simply become cottage industries where they've got no staff and it is the owner-occupier doing it in a very antiquated way, but making enough for their living. And there's nothing wrong with that. But understand that's probably where you're going to end up if you don't modernize. History's littered with businesses that hang on to the past and are no longer here.
I think there's a place now like never before to get specialisms and get specialists into your business. You mentioned about getting advice there, both of you, and I just think in all areas of business, in all areas of tech in particular, social media marketing, we're fortunate now as an industry that we are set up with people you can go to who are specialists. You don't need to employ the marketing manager that has to be the most, they're a video editor, they're a copywriter, they're a website designer, and they do all of it okay, like a Swiss Army knife, but they're not a specialist in any of it. You can now go and outsource and bring in specialists in all these different areas. Me and Mike have always said, we learned it we're quite infant in business running, kind of 5 years in, but we learned very quickly that all of our cost lines need to be specialists. And if there was a particular company that went into a secondary type of setup, for example, the website guy decided he was going to do social media lead campaigns, we just wouldn't use it because we had a social media lead campaign specialist. We always wanted the primary of what they were. And I think that's kind of allowed us to go and get those specialisms. And I've always done the lead gen for Avocado, but probably about 8 months ago, we brought a third party in. It was a very expensive kind of monthly cost. And I thought, I just want to see what they do for 3 months to learn from it. And then I quickly realized actually that $3,000 a month cost is probably one of the best investments we make every month, because what they're able to do from a specialist point of view, I quickly realized I'm like a 5 out of 10 and these guys are 9 out of 10, and the results are just worth every penny that we pay them. They won't be listening to this, so hopefully they don't put the cost up, but they were value for money. So those specialisms, I think, is something to really look at, for the business owners out there. And the same applies to the valuer, the negotiator. the branch manager. We speak about it a lot in our mastermind, Ian, me and Mark, with the other guys, and having a really talented branch manager or valuer or negotiator, you should pay them at the level that they're worth to that branch. Because if you take one of those skill sets out of a £500,000 a year branch, it can cost you 40% revenue next year if they're not there. Sometimes, it can be that much of a kick in the P&L nuts.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so there's quite a wide topic. Specialism, yes. Fractional recruits, yes. I think I would rather have a couple of hours of a true expert that absolutely, I'm a 5, they're a 10, than having the full-time person that they're a 5, I'm a 5. Because if I'm a 5 and they're a 5, I ain't going forward, but I'm still paying their wages.
Yeah.
And I probably would dominate the proceedings anyway. Therefore, I'm wasting my money. I'm making my life easy. I'm getting the legwork done. But am I getting a better outcome, better return for investment? Or go the full hog if you're big enough and get the 24/7 recruit that is absolutely the rock star that's going to cost you 3 times what you're paying either somebody you had or a consultant. So Dal Norton was particularly good at that, in the fact that he didn't shy away from paying big money in the what would have been considered the ancillary non-front end. He was clever in, we had a marketing team. I can't remember how many people, 5 or 6 people in our marketing team 20 years ago. And that was unheard of then. They were analysing, they were creating, they were doing things, they were keeping everything. And if we wanted a leaflet at ground level, it was in our hands within a couple of hours. If we wanted to change, or we wanted a marketing concept, it was there right in our hands. So specialism, it's not a word I've heard of, but I'm now going to nick it, Ian. So that's mine now. I'm going to steal it. But yeah, I 100% agree with that. But, for many of the older leadership, they just see a cost. They cannot see the other side. So it's, if I pay somebody £30,000 rather than 20,000, will I get more for my 10,000 from that particular negotiator? Right down to that level, they can't see it. But I can hire someone for 20,000. Yes, you can. But you're going to have to spend hours training them. Probably they'll last 6 months, blah, blah, blah. So the spend and reward system is it's a real problem. And when it comes down to it, it's because you're not commanding the fees.
Yeah.
If we were charging 2% for every listing, you would be freer with your salaries, your recruiting, your other technological products. So it's an interesting time. So I think we will see a lot of consolidation in the space between, partly because the corporates will be looking to buy up all the lettings books, and it's very difficult to make money out of lettings now if you're small. That's, you're going to see that change continue at a hell of a rate. But you're also going to see, I think, businesses adapting to a very new climate, but they are going to need specialist help to get that right, in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I totally agree. And before we kind of wrap up the podcast, because I appreciate your time and wisdom that you've shared, I'm delighted that I'm going to be speaking at one of the events that you're putting on next month, so a couple of weeks' time.
8th of October, Reading Football Club.
At the Madstad, as it's known around these ways.
Well, it's not technically now, but yes, it is the Madstad. It will always be the Madstad to Berkshire people, yes.
It will indeed. Could you just give us a little bit of an insight into the event, why it's a benefit for agents to come? And we'll probably put a link in the show notes for the episode as well for people that want to register, because it is a free event for estate agents, which is great.
Yeah, so the ICG is a concept where we've got the suppliers together. In this concept of trying to put stuff back, they pay for and sponsor this event so that it is free to estate agents, so that they can, without having to make a cost decision, they can go and at least look at and see and hear from thought leaders in various processes. We've got Kirsty's going to be doing the thing on marketing. Kirsty's very up and coming in Kirsty Franks, that is, sorry. She's very up and coming in the marketing space, very on point with all these new modern things, and she's responsible for building and transforming a lot of businesses' fortunes in that marketing space, including me. I'm working with Kirsty now, and she's busy doing some projects for me right now. And I think getting access to her for an hour or so while she does her talk, that would cost you thousands to get that hour, because it's high caliber advice. You've got Mal McCannion and John Paul are going to be talking about the practical takeaways of the AI that you could implement in your business tomorrow. So nothing, not the blue sky stuff, but the real basic technology that you could go away and just implement to make your business better from any of those 4 things we spoke about earlier. Does it make more money? Does it do this, that, and the other? But not that big blue sky stuff that then requires a further project. Just the stuff that you can really listen to them, take it away, go and have a look. They're going to hear from yourself, Ian, your journey from a little bit like you've just asked me to go through my history, your journey. Hopefully be able to tell them some of the mistakes you've made, because I think that's always a powerful thing, is to talk to people about your mistakes. Obviously the wins, your transition through to the I don't know what you guys call it, but the sort of brokerage model is what I call it, the self-employed sort of modern brokerage model, because there was a lot of interest in that space. I think a lot of traditional agents are realizing they're going to need to have that string to their bow to avoid losing their talent. They've got no succession plan, and they need to add that to their bow. So they're going to get to hear from you. But in amongst all of that, they're going to meet 20. There are 20 innovators there that have the solutions that we vetted as being best in class. And you'll be able to get a little bit of an insight into any of those, so that you can start to make informed decisions on whether you do want to act, if you want to act, who with, and you'll come away with 3 great speakers that will probably give you 3 or 4 things you can implement in your business pretty quickly, for free. And we feed you and we water you. So what's not to like if you're an estate agent?
Love that. Coming down, Mark. It's a long way for you.
I was just considering it, but it is quite a long way.
Stay at mine, mate. You can stay at mine. It's only up the road for me.
I don't even know if there's any tickets available. Do put the link in, because if anybody does apply, we might be able to expand the room. But I believe it's near capacity, but because it's free, you see. So and the speakers we've got haven't spoken before. Mal McCallion has, but for a few minutes. But they're really valid topics. The three people we've picked are really on point as to what agents need to be thinking about. Get your marketing right, get your data right, get your strategy. And do you need to be evolving your model, which is your PC? Because you've done that. You've gone through, one of the most traditional estate agency businesses from the 80s in terms of mindset, right the way through to a completely brand new model. That's a hell of a load of knowledge that's there that people can get from those three sessions.
And it is all about, as we say on this podcast, Mark, all the time, education does equal progress. And the more that we can do in the industry to learn more, understand more, the more we can develop, and we can get back to trying to get, fees in line with inflation rather than continually dropping the percentage. Appreciate, obviously, the pounds and pence does change. It's a topic for another conversation, but no, it's all about that education, knowledge, wisdom, and being better equipped, mentally to go into the battle the next day for your business, for your role, for your career, depending on what level you're at. So I really appreciate you coming on, Ian. Thank you very much. It's been some great
very
topic.
Quick thing, I'd love to just to add on to that thing about the ICG, is that if I could have on my tombstone the day I die, the one thing I would love to do is change the attitude of estate agents towards collaborating with one another for the good of their industry. I genuinely believe that agents, like they do in Oz, like they do in the States, they need to own more of the supply chain. So at the moment, the supply chain, they will argue, bleeds them. You said there's this love-hate relationship, the magpie thing. Come and talk to us, because we are working with estate agents on one side and tech players on the other, where at board level, we will collaborate, we will communicate, we will share ideas. On the ground floor, fight like hell for every instruction, for every for every mortgage appointment. Yeah, absolutely. But at senior level, at intelligent level, at the absolute top, let's do what the corporates have been doing to us for years, and that's gang up, buy cheaper, buy better, and own the supply chain. So, or at least own a part of the supply chain. So come and talk to us about what that's about, because I think if the agency can collaborate, it can then move forward. If it doesn't collaborate, it's just going to end up being vanilla. It's just going to end up being a bit of a good agent will win, a bad agent will lose.
Collaborate. It's an excellent point. I hope you get it on your gravestone in a long, long time. And I think that's a really good aim. And thank you very much. A great episode, loads of key takeaways based on your experience and what you're doing now. So thank you. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, gentlemen. Lovely talking to you both.
A massive thank you once again to Iain White for joining us today. Iain, a man of extensive experience with some really good views on agency. I really enjoyed just randomly the bit that he talked about within Roman's group of training behaviours and not whipping people based on numbers. I thought that was a subtle bit. It just sort of came out as part of when we had a conversation about his mindset and what have you. But actually, that's gold for leaders. And he talked about how important having good leaders in your businesses. That's absolute gold within there. Just a little nugget hidden in there, of which, of course, there was many.
Yeah, and it's interesting when he described the two owners, of the business, the two senior figures, and how different they were, but that one was very much around the cultural side of things, very much around the future, very much able to look at what comes next and have a strategy and a plan in place. And then the other person was very much, this is how we manage these beliefs, this culture, these behaviours down. So you've very much got the visionary and the implementator. And I think as we've spoken about, in our group previously, I really believe that is how a successful business can evolve, is when you've got the visionary, you've got that implementer, and that's clearly what you saw there. He backs himself to be the main valuer as well. If it's that big listing, you're sending Iain into bat. I really liked that as well, because it just shows that you've got to have confidence in your decision making as well as a senior leader in the industry as well. And I like that. I think that's how we should be. I don't think there's enough decisive people in a state agency at grassroots level to make a small, medium or large decision on a whim when we need to. And I think that's potentially the bit that the generation is slightly missing, is you can't ask chat yet what to do next.
He talked about being non-vanilla, didn't he? And I think he would definitely fall into that camp. Very confident, but the bit that he talked about mindset was really interesting. He basically said that he got to branch manager at 19 on the back of his mindset, going in every day wanting to exceed expectations. And I think for any young negs listening, that's a massive takeaway, that actually just going to hit target is fine, but if you're going and working month to month for the paycheck at the end, then that's not what will lead you to excel in this industry. People like Iain White have been successful on the back of their strong mindset, waking up every day excited to go into work to exceed their targets. And it's a lesson in life, not just in agency, right?
Yeah, and I think that the worry that we have in this day and age is that when you are ambitious and decisive, you will make the wrong decisions. And the balance is, can you suppress the fear that you have of the almost public embarrassment of failing on a decision or making the wrong decision, and still push past and make it? Because that's where I think a lot of people worry in this day and age, is that if I get this wrong, I'm going to be embarrassed or I'm going to be scrutinized for it, when actually it's the quickest way to learn. I was watching, and I don't know why, it's because I couldn't find the remote. I was watching the One Show the other day, and it was literally because I couldn't find the remote. I don't normally watch it, but Ed Sheeran was on the sofa and he said something right at the end along the same lines, which is, they were talking about him when he did his first performance when he was 11 years old, his school talent, and he cried before. And they said, how have you progressed your career in that period of time since that moment? And he was very much, along the journey you fail, and when you fail, you learn how not to fail. And that's what I think a lot of successful people can do really well, is they can make a decision, they can back it, and then they learn, actually, that was a mistake, and they learn how not to do that failure again, and then they evolve. Don't make the same mistake twice is a common phrase. And I think it's kind of what Iain is really strong at, is going, right, I'm gonna just make this decision, speed up the process, get there, and just learn what happens, in the battleground there and then. And that's a great place to be. And I sing from the same hymn sheet on that basis as well. So, it should be a good event. like I said, I've got a rough idea of what I'm going to talk about, but I've not started the PowerPoint. I've got the avocado group meet first, which has got 70 odd slides of PowerPoint to share with them, and then I'll deep dive into the ICG one. But if you are an estate agent, definitely get down and check out the event. It's one to go to that you know it's worth the time. I know it's free, but our time is our value, isn't it? It's worth the day to go and spend some time educating. What's your? We've got conference season coming round, award season. Will you be staying away, Mark, this year, or will you be getting stuck into anything?
I've really avoided it over the last few years. I've not given it much thought. You put me on the spot there a little bit. We'll probably have a chat and see which ones appeal. I've not been to loads and loads over the. It's a long way for us. You mentioned about coming down to Reading. We've just had a bit of a chat off air. I would like to go to that because that, with the lineup, sounds quite interesting. And having never met Iain, and I really enjoyed our conversation. I think there's loads of interesting things that could come out of that. But it's my son's birthday, and if I am not there, then it won't go down very well. So it's no good for me. But those conferences. So what have we got? The NEG, the EA Masters.
Yeah,
Kerfuffle conference has been, hasn't it?
Kerfuffle one's been. It's more award season, isn't it? Now it's more the awards. I mean, what are the big awards? You got NEG Awards, you got Esther's, you got EA Masters. Is that it? There's probably some other ones that have, but they're the big ones, aren't they? That I think people get excited for. So
yeah, I'll be surprised if I'm getting involved in any of them. To be perfectly honest, not to be skeptical. We went to the NEG Awards a few years ago, and we had a really good time. But how beneficial it was for the business, I think, is probably debatable.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to the EAX. It's their number 10 event, actually. The Iceberg event. It's always a good one. They got Daniel Priestley speaking, a few industry people as well. It'd be a nice one to sit in the crowd. They always do that at the like an everyman cinema type setup. So it's quite cool because you get popcorn halfway through and we're kind of in the sofas in the cinema sort of vibe. Still an ambition of mine to do one of the group events in an everyman cinema, just because I always like the EAX one where they do it. It's, quite.
So when's the EAX one? Because Daniel Priestley is definitely worth listening to.
Yeah, that is October. Is that next Friday? Actually, it's a Friday. I've got like Friday the something in my mind, but that's definitely one to go to because that's a different sort of conversation, actually. Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's booked in. I'm going up there with Cindy and Matt Barrell. Always a good one because it's a different vibe. You can get an insight through actual estate agents that aren't public speakers that are trained, and they just share pearls of wisdom. But it's kicked off with the keynote of Daniel Priestley, who's always interesting to hear from, and obviously he links it to agency because he knows what Mark does. So that would be a good one as well. But yeah, it'd be interesting to hear from the listeners. Do's and don'ts, recommendations, where to go, where not to go, who to see, and who not to.
Who's worth making that trip down south? Off to get my passport out. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, a really good episode today, and like you say, I think Ian's event would definitely be one worth going to if you are considering it. A massive thank you once again to Iain White for joining us today, and also we mentioned them there, but I often don't talk about it. Massive thank you to Iceberg Digital for sponsoring the podcast. It really has allowed us to improve the pod, get more face-to-face, and continue to evolve what we do here for the benefit of our industry. We don't say this at the end because it's a little bit of a thing. We genuinely want to see the industry improve and get better, as Iain talked about today as well. So massive thank you to listening, and we will see you again next week.
Thanks, everyone.